Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm Desiree Stanley, and with me today is my guest, Nikki Adams. Welcome, Nikki. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to learn about Pilates and the benefits of Pilates. Why is it so beneficial? What is it? We often hear it's super great for us and for our core, but why is that? What is it about Pilates that makes it better than any other kind of workout?
Okay. So one thing I would say is there's mat Pilates, and a lot of times mat Pilates gets confused or lumped in with yoga. People are like, oh, it's like yoga. And then we're like, no, it's not like yoga. So, but there are some similarities, of course. But what I use and what I teach on is the apparatus. So being that the reformer is the main piece of equipment. So you have a Pilates reformer. Then we also have a chair. We also have a Cadillac and some other little accessories that go along with it. So being that you have these pieces of apparatus, and let's just go with the reformers being like the main piece of equipment, it's spring loaded and it operates on a pulley system. A lot of the exercises that you are doing, you're lying on your back. So while you're lying on your back, it's helping to decompress your spine and then giving you that load so that you can strengthen your bones, your joints, your muscles, strengthen, lengthen, and then still get that kind of low impact workout. The core focus, when we say core anymore, some people think core is just being abdominals, but your core is really from like the trunk, kind of like your upper thighs all the way up to the top of your shoulders. That's like your whole trunk of your body. So if you think about, you have a strong core as like a tree trunk. It's that you want your tree trunk to be strong so it can support all the rest of the limbs that are, of your body. In Pilates, with the focus, we do a lot of focusing on pelvic placement. So we want you to hold your pelvis in a certain position and learn how to stabilize your pelvis while you then perform these series of exercises. And then everything that you're doing, you're recruiting your abdominals, you're recruiting your core muscles in order to execute the movement. So if I'm lifting my arm, I'm like already beginning to, engage my core before I even lift my arm up. Having said that, we're working the body in all ranges of motion and all planes of motion, all ranges of motions, all directions, all sides of the body. So you're getting a complete workout when you come in. We're not just focusing on one day. I mean, you could, but ideally you're focusing on full body workout, all sides of the body, all ranges of motion. And so that you're getting a complete full body workout, head to toe, front to back. And then after you've been doing Pilates for a while, it's going to help you just be better at other sports, have more, it's postural focused. It's, so postural alignment, core focused, could be anywhere, gait focused on how you walk. So the idea is that what you're doing in Pilates and what you're learning that you can take out into your everyday life and apply that to whatever activity, down to walking, to even driving, to golfing, etc. So I guess, in a long roundabout way, that is one of the main benefits, is that it's going to help complement and maybe help you perform other activities better.
Yeah, no, that's great. That fully explains it, because as you said, you're working every part of your body with these movements. So I can see how that would benefit you in every aspect of your daily life.
Yes,
for sure.
And then depending on the spring tension, so it is spring tension, it has the springs. So less could sometimes make the exercise feel harder versus it's not always going to be more weight makes it harder or less weight makes it easier. It could be the exact opposite. It would just depend on what the focus of the exercise is and what we're trying to get out of it. So for example, if we were doing a plank on the reformer, if you had one light spring on, you could potentially like fly out and just, fall down in the well. If you go too fast and you don't have control for it. So lighter might make it just a little bit harder core wise, but heavier might make it a little bit harder shoulder and arm wise.
Mm.
So it just depend on what it is that our focus is of that. But
Okay.
as time goes, we want to, there is new theories, and maybe not necessarily new, but just new concepts that people are saying, hey, in Pilates, it used to be everything was about form and alignment first and foremost, and aesthetics. And now it's just getting more into, hey, let's just get people moving. And you're never going to really get stronger if you don't increase your load. So just like lifting weights, if you're only lifting a 3-pound weight all day long, then that's all you're going to do. So at some point you got to bump it up to get the strength.
Oh, that's a great point. How long have you been teaching Pilates? When did you get started?
So I have actually been teaching Pilates now for just about 14 years, but I've been practicing it for about 23 years. And I did start off doing mat Pilates. And then I got into working with a reformer just by chance. I honestly, when I first started, didn't even know what a reformer existed. I have a autoimmune disease. I have psoriatic arthritis. And with that, I have a lot of joint ligament problems. And one of them, I have a herniated disc in my neck. I mean, I can go on and on, but it was recommended to me from a rheumatologist that I should go try it. And at the time I was living in Southern California and in Redondo Beach, and there was a Pilates studio almost like on every corner. And that was my first introduction to the reformer. And I just instantly fell in love with it. It was just a different type of exercise. I had lifted weights when I was younger, and this was just something different, and it was really challenging. And there's a lot of balance, included in Pilates as well, to help increase and just to get overall balance, which is important as we age. And so, so I tried it and just was intrigued with it, and then continued I was going like 3 times a week, and
Wow.
And that's what led me into like falling in love with it.
And did you notice right away improvement in yourself? And then you said you had the herniated disc in your neck.
Mm-hmm.
So did that provide, some relief from that in improving that support?
Yeah. You still got to be careful. I mean, because it is in your neck. So you have to be careful, but the more that you learn and the more that you practice and strengthen your knowledge, then the more you learn how to modify for what you're doing. So you learn how to do certain exercises that are going to help get you stronger, but maybe avoid making anything that's already maybe a little aggravated worse. Our goal is to either keep it the same, if not better, but never to make anything exasperate anything that you have going on. So yeah, it definitely helped with that. And honestly, my balance was horrible. I never knew that I had bad balance until I was started to do Pilates. And in my first couple of sessions, my trainer was having me do all this balance work. And I was like, oh my God, like I literally have no balance. And I think out of all the things that's improved the most for me over the years of practicing it is just my overall balance.
That's a great point that you bring up. As we do get older, how often are we hearing about family members or friends falling and injuring themselves because we lose that balance? So that's a fantastic point.
Yeah. And we do, there's a lot of, the demographic for people that come in, Pilates isn't cheap. So even if you're doing group classes, it can get costly. So your demographic is usually going to be, it is mainly women, even though it's not just for women. It was actually a man that created it for men. But over the years, it's just women have gravitated towards it. But you have to be at a certain level in your life to be able to have that disposable income, to be able to practice Pilates. And a lot of them are coming to increase their balance, increase their posture. They're not just coming there for aesthetics. It's other reasons.
Okay. Yeah, that's great to know. So you said you've been teaching now about 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when you started teaching, was that in LA? Were you living elsewhere? Because now you've moved a couple of times, and we talked before we started the episode. And so I know that you've moved around a couple of times. So was it in LA that you first started your teaching career?
So I started to initially get into a program in LA, and one of their prerequisites was that you had to do X amount of privates, like 100 privates, before they would even accept you into their program. If you didn't already have some type of like fitness background, or if you weren't already had your kinesiology degree or something like that. So I was gearing towards that, and then I became pregnant, and then I got my job transferred up to Seattle. So we moved up to, at that time I was working in the aerospace industry, both my husband and I got a relocation offer up to Seattle, which I had lived there when I was younger. And I always just loved Seattle. It was my opportunity to get back there. So we did it. And then right away I found a Pilates studio up there to go start getting trained. But I had to start all over again because it was a new method that I was doing up there. And, it turned out to be a really good thing. And so then I was working full time and going to school to become a Pilates teacher. Yeah. And I was pregnant in the beginning, and then had my daughter, and then continued my education with it.
So now you are quite up there in terms of the level of teaching. I think you said it's like master level, or?
I don't like to say I am a master instructor, but it is the name of when you are an educator and you're beginning to help certify and qualify up and coming teacher trainers to be a Pilates instructor. They usually label that person a master trainer or master educator. Yeah. But basically what I ended up doing was got into that via way of when I was opening when I had my own studios, as a way to train and staff my own locations. And you have to, have a certain amount of years and knowledge and training behind you. And so I qualified to become a master trainer for a company called Club Pilates. They're a franchise. And that's also, I'll fast forward a little bit. I was a franchise owner for 3 Club Pilates in the Seattle area. I was the first person to bring Club Pilates to the Seattle area. So that's what led me into being a master trainer, so that I could staff my studios. And then also I helped others, Club Pilates owners. I traveled around and helped them also lead teacher trainings for them, so that they could get staff, really, because it's not just easy. It's a lot of training involved. It's a lot more. It's just not a weekend certification. It could take a long time. And then you get your training, and you might have, you might be, I guess, certified, but you're not really qualified yet until you really get your boots on the ground and get out there and practice and get your hands on. And that's how you get your real experience. Just like with any career, really. So
you said you were in the aerospace industry, and now all of a sudden you have 3 Pilates clubs. Okay. So what happened in between there?
So I was working, I already knew that I wanted to go, eventually I was going to leave my aerospace job and work part-time. That was the goal. And the goal was that I would be a Pilates instructor at a studio working for someone. And then just by chance, I had been going around and interviewing different owners and asking them what their pay scale was, and just learning more about it, because I didn't know. And so after talking to some people, I thought, well, maybe it would be better to do something on my own, even if it was from my house, buy my own equipment, which I already had anyways, because I bought it so that I could practice at home as well, and really get better at my craft on my downtime. And then after that, we saw a little place that was for lease, just this tiny little, less than 1,000 square foot building, and thought, oh, this might be a good place to open a studio, haha. And then called the landlord and got the information. And then next thing you know, we're signing a lease to do this. So that really put the pressure on. At that time, I was still working full time, and then doing that on my off hours, and I had seniority, so I was able to take some vacation time and try to do that. And then so I opened up my first boutique studio in 2009. I opened that, and then had that for almost 5 years, but then in between there, then I opened up a franchise. So then I got involved in the franchise business model. So for a while I had my boutique studio along with my first Club Pilates going into the franchise business model. And then after I had the one location, I signed on for 2 more territories. And then the goal was that you would open one a year after you opened up your first one.
How was that different? Having the boutique, small little one versus a franchise one, which sounds like it's a much bigger commitment.
The idea was that at the time, this is when Club Pilates was still newer. They had been around for a while, but mainly in the San Diego area, because that's where they were headquartered. And the founder, her name is Allison Beardsley. She's a really awesome person. She had started out on her own, her and her husband in San Diego. And then she began to franchise out. And in the beginning of that, it was just Pilates instructors, women that were Pilates instructors and that wanted to open up their own location. And the cool thing about it was that you didn't have to reinvent the wheel. She already invented the templates. She had here's your new hire forms. Here's your, plug and play, I guess, where when you're on your own and you're a sole proprietor, you're having to create all these new documents on your own. The idea of going into a franchise, I liked, because the other thing is just the marketing aspect of it, having to create your own images and graphics and social media and SEO, all that kind of search engines. And that's a lot. And, you have to know how to do it, or you have to know the people that know how to do it. You have to hire someone. It costs money. So I thought, well, this is really cool. Like, she did it. She already did it all. And now she's willing just to say, here's your, of course there's a fee for it. You're buying into the franchise, and here is your stuff. But then also, okay, here's your files, and this is where you're going to get all your plug and play and go from there. But then shortly after I opened up my first location, she sold to a bigger investor. And then they went really big. And so within 3 months of opening up my first location, she sold. And then now there's, this group of investors came in, and then they just blew it up. But it changed everything. It was just a little bit more than what I had originally thought I was getting into. In the beginning, it was just like this cute little thing, this women supporting women, and Allison being the founder and also a Pilates instructor, to a whole different animal after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can imagine. It sounds like since they were expanding quite a lot, right? And changing everything from the bottom up, it sounds like then it just completely changed the whole feel of it.
The people that were now becoming owners of the Pilates Club Pilates they were investors. They weren't Pilates instructors. You were an investor. It was a retirement plan, or it was a group of investors that were coming in and buying territories up. And so, they had people with money. And so in the beginning with us, it didn't, it was $20,000, and you can buy into your franchise, and with it you get all your materials and stuff. But now it's just insane. And even with our equipment, when we bought our equipment, we were able to get it at a discounted price, through directly from the manufacturer. And then when it became more corporate, they ended up making us buy the equipment through them, and it was more. So okay. Yeah. So it just got the price, just everything just started racking up. And
yeah, it seems like it maybe lost a little bit of the heart for
it did.
For the dollar.
Even though it was a franchise, and really, so the new CEO for Club Pilates, who I actually adore, his name's Anthony Geisler. He's a really cool guy. He kind of laughed and was like, yeah, she called it a franchise, but it really wasn't a franchise, because a franchise, everything is cookie cutter. And but with Allison, she gave us more freedom where, hey, I want you to use the logo and I want you to paint your walls a certain color. But if you want purple flooring, have purple flooring, He's like, no, that's not a franchise. And so, it made a lot of sense what he was saying, but it was that was kind of cool because we were like, we still had some individuality that we could add to it. And we had Allison, and she was amazing.
Would you recommend other people who maybe are thinking about getting into the Pilates industry in terms of teaching or buying into a franchise? I mean, is that something you would recommend?
The path that I took is the path that I took, and I don't see myself doing it any other way, but I would never recommend it to anybody else. I would recommend that you go and I just need to slow my roll a little bit. I think I got just went full force into it. But I would recommend that, you go get your training, you find a mentor, somebody that can mentor you, work at a studio that's willing to spend the time to mentor you, and then baby steps. And then maybe you go into ownership. But honestly, I feel like if you love teaching Pilates, then you should just teach Pilates. Being a business owner, it's not the same. It's two different hats that you're wearing, and you got to take off one hat and put on the other all the time. And if your passion is to teach Pilates, I would say teach Pilates. Don't go into ownership. It sounds glamorous, and people think it's glamorous, and people think, oh, I'm going to make so much more money. But really, you're going to make more money just being a Pilates instructor working for someone else than owning your own studio.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I could see how it would fit different sort of plans if a person was interested in having a business, then just be the business owner. If somebody's interested in teaching and being, a teacher, then just do that. The crossover is maybe not. Doesn't make sense.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And and some of us, we could do it, it's doable, but it's a lot. You need to have a business background, and you need to know, I didn't have a business background. I don't, but I learned as I went. I mean, I had worked in the corporate world, and I knew how to project management, I knew how to do certain things and certain steps. And my husband has a degree in business, and, between the two of us, we could figure it out. But yeah, I would say, or if you're going to do it, make sure that you do have a partner who is very business savvy and also wants to really keep up with the business. It's important to have a partner, whether it's your husband or whether it's a business partner.
Super valid and great information, because then you've got both sides covered and you don't have to wear both hats. And having somebody who's got that business knowledge really sets you ahead of the game than trying to catch up, right? Figure this stuff out as you go is really challenging, on top of trying to run the day-to-day operation and teaching on top of all that.
Yeah. And the other thing too is if you're the business owner and you're also a Pilates instructor, a lot of the instructors will be like, well, I'll just call in sick because she can teach the classes, Whereas if you weren't, maybe they would, but you would think that they might be more apt to be like, well, if I don't show up, no one's going to be there to teach the class, and maybe their guilty conscience would kick in. But otherwise, they're just like, well, she could teach her own classes.
Was there a point when you were like, forget this, I'm going to just go back to my aerospace job because I know how to do that. That's easy.
Yes. There were several times when I thought about it, but the thought of that also just soul crushing, because even though I worked in my aerospace job and I had been in and out, I've worked for two different major companies. I worked for Northrop Grumman and Boeing, one of the two biggest companies in aerospace, both of them for the past 20 years prior to that. And then I was making excellent money, had just got another great raise, like a 10% raise right before I quit, and just got another promotion. And when I was going to quit, my boss was like, are you really sure you want to do this? You're doing good here. And I'm like, I know, but if I never do this, I won't do this, because I just never loved it there. And not that everybody loves their job, because let's face it, most people don't love their job. But I wanted to finally do something that I could potentially love. When I was working in aerospace, and I don't remember, it was some Oprah episode I watched. She was reading from a book. Can't remember who it was, but it just always sat with me. It was, this person was saying that by going to that place every single day, it felt like a slow pecking death every single day. And like that a piece of their soul died every day they went into this place. And that's literally how I felt for the whole 20 years that I worked in aerospace. I hated it, like just hated it. I was good at my job. I was a good worker. I was a good employee. There was zero passion, zero interest. I was just there for the paycheck. And I wanted to finally do something that I felt happy to go to. And so I thought, well, this is it. This is my opportunity. But then I just went too fast, did everything way too fast. And I needed to slow down because then I just found myself in where I was just being a business owner and a Pilates instructor. And then I had all these studios open and I was just drowning and I had no social life. I was exhausted by the time I got home. When you are an instructor or you're performing all day long,
Right.
you have to be on all day long. You know, you could be teaching 4 to 5 classes back to back. And, you know, I'm by nature and I'm an introvert. So you have to turn on that extrovert the whole time. And then by the time, you know, that those 4 or 5 hours are done, you're just like a vapor comes over you. And, you know, I need to go introvert for a while. But I still think about it. My husband, every once in a while, is like, hey, you know, so-and-so's hiring, or you can get a job here. And I'm just like, no, because I still get to teach Pilates now, but I get to do it more on my rules. I get to, you know, I only work where I want to work out. I only work the hours I want to work. I only work as many hours as I want to work. And I'm able to now drop my daughter off from school, pick my daughter up from school, and which is what my goal was to begin with. It just took me a long time to get there.
About what time was it or what year that you sold the studios and went back to teaching?
So in 2019, we were already trying to sell the studios just kind of independently behind the scenes. People knew I was trying to sell them. And then because they weren't making any money. And I was going to work every day, trying to put a smile on my face and, you know, and then never paid myself a paycheck ever. It was hard after a while to keep going in there every single day. And then I'm not paying myself at all, but yet you got everybody wants a piece of you, right? Coming after you, but that's the world of business. And so then at the time, my husband got a job offer for down here in Silicon Valley for a startup company. And it was just one of those things. It was like a dream job offer. And I was like, yeah, you got to do this. Like you know, you got to take a risk, and without risk, there's no reward. And you might risk and it might not work out, but you're never going to know unless you try it. And so we got to try this. And so we put the house up for sale. Luckily, our house sold. We didn't even have to have an open house. It sold like within 24 hours. We put it up. It sold for over asking price. And then, so I stayed back. He left and came down here and worked for 6 months. And then I finished off the school year. It was my son's senior year and my daughter's end of elementary school, and then sold the houses and sold the businesses, and everything just kind of tied in right at the same time. And then been down here ever since, and then went right into working and teaching at other studios when I first got here. I first went and worked at a Club Pilates, but then that lasted for about a year. And then I realized that it was just too close to home. I think for me, I needed to get away from that corporate business model. And I needed to go back to my original roots of being in a smaller boutique studio and not working in like a corporate studio. It's just a whole different feeling and vibe.
So you are teaching at one studio now, or do you teach at multiple studios?
I teach at multiple. I teach at 3 different locations in the Bay Area. So I teach one here in Morgan Hill, and then I teach at 2 in Los Gatos.
Oh, excellent. Sounds like you're much happier with that.
Yeah, much happier. I'm getting paid finally. And then I also, not to like toot my own horn or, but I have experience, and I'm able to help the owners that have maybe instructors that need a little mentoring or a little green. I'm able to help them. I don't try to step on anyone's toes. I don't try to come in and be like, hey, I'm this or that. But if they need the help, if they want to ask me for it, then I'll definitely really open to helping people, because I know what it's like to be in their shoes and be an owner. And maybe you had an instructor and she was great, and then maybe her husband got a job offer in another state, and now your best instructor just had to leave you, and now you need to find some new talent. So I like to be able to help, but certain people, because you can get taken advantage of.
That is true. But if you've got the knowledge and the experience as you do, why not share that with somebody who could benefit? And I'm sure they appreciate that your expertise can benefit them in a time of need.
And it's also in another way, selfish, because from my part, I want the Pilates brand, or Pilates as general, tarnished, I guess you could say. It's important to me that people that are teaching Pilates are out there teaching good Pilates, and that instructors are good instructors, and that they're not just going through some, churning them out and then just throwing them out on the floor, and no one's giving them any mentoring. And it's really not the instructor's fault. It's just these owners get desperate, and they want people to go out there. But then, new people coming in, they're like, oh, well, this is Pilates, this is horrible. And so it's important to me, that just overall that Pilates somewhat has a good reputation of what the exercise method is about, and that people aren't out there just looking at TikTok or looking at Instagram and following things that they see on there, not really having the knowledge behind why they're doing what they're doing. So that's important to me. And I want to work at studios that put the time into mentoring their instructors and doing workshops and continuing education.
Yes, because ultimately that's going to benefit the people who come in to learn how to do Pilates and care for their body, make improvements in their health and lifestyle. So it really is what's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's important. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's just exercise. It's just Pilates. I mean, it's not that serious, but it's still, but I take pride into what I do. And I want other people that I work with to take pride in what they do. And I want to help them and give them a positive experience. And because there are some new instructors that might get put out too soon. Sometimes it's hard to give people corrective criticism to help them. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a reputation of that studio, whatever the studio is, it's going to be the reputation of that studio or that owner who it's going to fall upon.
Absolutely. That's true. Well, to shift gears a little bit, we also wanted to talk about your pro-aging mentality and how important that is to you, is aging proactively in a healthy way. And so some of that is also your journey in going gray and not dyeing your hair and all of that kind of stuff. So talk us through a little bit of that. When did that kind of turning point happen for you?
Well, the pandemic helped for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been growing gray since I was about 19 years old. And so ever since then, I've been a slave to getting my hair dyed. The older I got, it used to be every 6 weeks, and then it was every 4 weeks, and then it became like every 3 weeks. And then let's just be honest, it was probably almost every 2 weeks. And then, I had to buy the sprays, and, you always had to like plan out what you were doing around when you're going to get your hair dyed. And so when the pandemic happened, all the salons shut down. I did have a a stylist that would make me custom kits and drop them off on my front door, and I could do it, but it wasn't the same. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get this stuff all over my house and all over me. And if I'm going to dye my hair, I want to go someplace and have it done. So I just was finally like, you know what? I've always wanted to see what was under here. I have no idea what it's going to look like. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. And the first 6 months were the hardest to go through. The way I felt like, for me, it was like, I want to see, number one, what it's going to look like. And number two, if I like it, then why not? Mm-hmm. Why not keep it, save the money, save the time? It's just one more chore or one more thing that's on your list to do. And it's only hair. Let's go for it and see what happens along, and you learn a lot about yourself in the process, because I consider myself to be somewhat of a vain person, and I do care about what I look like. And so it was like a test of my vanity too. Like, can I do this? And can I walk around and with my hair, half one color, half the other color, and go through the whole transition. And so it's just like a personal test, I guess, on my strength and my vanity on if I could go through it. But you learn that it's hair, and nothing else, still the same face, still the same person. And now I love it, and I wouldn't have done it any other way. It's probably one of the more rewarding things that I have done for myself. I feel like I've inspired a lot of other people to do it. I have people that come up to me all the time, and some people think I diet, and they'll ask me, hey, is that real? I'm like, yeah, it's real. It's been great. And now I'm just like, I think that any woman that, you have to be ready to do it. I'm never going to push someone, hey, you got to do this. But if you're ever on the fence or you're considering going for it, just go for it. Cause you just, you never know what you're going to end up with. And what is it like? It could be 2 years could have passed and you could have done nothing, or 2 years could have passed and you could have done it and it could be already done and over with. So you might as well just do it.
Yeah. Are there any kind of tips that you could share for somebody who's thinking about, letting their hair just go natural?
Yeah, I would say number one, a good hairdresser, a good haircut. Just get a good haircut. You don't have to cut your hair off. It's no longer, we're not our grandmas, 50 anymore. We're not our moms 50 anymore. We're a different 50 nowadays. And I would say, go to a good stylist, and don't be afraid to experiment with, now's the time to wear a braid or a ponytail, or just do something. It might seem at first, I did like some braids and space buns and ponytails, and I thought, oh, this looks kind of childish, but it's like, who cares? It's fun, and just make it a statement when you do it. Like, put it in their face. I'm growing my hair out. This is what I'm doing. Don't try to, avoid it and walk around with glasses on. Make a statement and go for it. Try to avoid the sun. If you are out though, a hat's good, because your hair could start to turn yellow from the sun. That does happen. Heating products. No, yeah. Styling and overheating can turn it yellow as well. So you want to be careful with that. Invest in find a good purple shampoo to use. That's going to help with it. Just have fun with it. But good haircut, I think, is my number one thing that I would tell somebody to do.
That's awesome. A good haircut. And then the purple shampoo. Totally never would have thought of that. That is a tip that hairdressers do all the time. Is there anything that you've noticed specifically during your transition? Like, was there changes with your hair?
But no, not necessarily. But you definitely have to use some like a good serum to help the flyaways. But I think if you already had flyaways, you're going to have flyaways when you're gray.
What's your daily routine in terms of, skincare, hair care, that kind of stuff?
I wash my hair probably every 3 days. And then even if I work out, if I work out and I get super sweaty, I might wash it more often, but I wash it every 3 days. I try to only do like heat style it once a week when I do that. It usually lasts pretty well. Skincare, all that. It's just cleanse your face every single day before bed. Make sure you wash it clean it in the morning. A mishmash of products from a drugstore to some more expensive brands. Just moisturizing, sunscreen, super important, sunscreen.
Yes.
My one of my big things, I guess, along with the ProAging, is trying to avoid using like Botox and fillers and injections and doing all that stuff. Not to be against anyone that does use it. I have used it in the past before, very small amounts and very subtle ways. But I think nowadays, especially with young girls starting to use it, because I think girls, even like as early as 17, probably even younger, depending on where they're at, are now using fillers and getting their lips done and Botox. And to be quite honest, they don't, it's not making them look younger, it's making them look older. And in my opinion, they look older, they look hard, they all look the same, like they all look the exact same. And it's sad because people, and having daughters, you want to teach your daughters how to learn to love themselves and like their imperfections. And those are the things that make us unique and make us different. And so, you want to have an expression, you don't want to be walking around with a frozen face, and if you do, you do. Some people are like, they're like, hey, I do it and I proudly do it, I just think that for me, I want to be an example for my daughter. And I wear makeup. I've had my lips tattooed before, but small little things that help enhance your beauty. But there's that fine line of where you can just go overboard. And to me, the women that are just going overboard, using all the fillers and using all the injectables, they just look like a person that's doing that. We're not seeing you anymore. We're just seeing that. For me, the gray hair was step one. And then step two is just trying to take care of myself, but not to the point where I feel like I need to go to get plastic surgery, and start messing with my face.
If people have questions that they maybe want to ask you about the process that you went through, or if there's anything else, how would they get a hold of you? Or can we follow you on Instagram, see how your journey's going, that kind of thing?
I do have a page that on Instagram, it's called Going Gray for the Stay. I started it really just for my own documentation, to watch my transition to gray. And then little did I know, once I got into it, that there's literally, thousands and thousands of women. It's the Silver Sister community. If you look up #Silver Sisters, there's just a ton of really amazing, beautiful women from all over the world that have transitioned to gray. And everybody's helping inspire everybody else to make the transition. That's where I started to get like quite a few followers on there. It was like, wow, this is interesting. But it really is that's how many people are curious about going gray. And then they'll send you direct messages and ask you questions and ask for tips on it. Yeah, that's kind of my main account that I keep up the most with.
Okay.
And then my other one, it's Nikki Zafris Adams on Instagram, but it's linked to my Going Gray for the Stay page.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for being on the episode. We've learned so much fantastic information and things that I had no idea about for Pilates and what it does for your body. And I'm excited to have learned that. Thank you so much again for being on the show and sharing your transition from dyeing your hair to natural gray. And it is beautiful, by the way. I know.
Oh, thank you.
I know that you know that, and I know that you get compliments about that all the time because it's true. It's been a joy having you on, and I appreciate you being on the show. Thank you again.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me.